We're good? Yes, we're good. Are we on?
We are live.
We are?
Yep.
Oh. Hello. Look in this one. Yes. We are live. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Almeida, and I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Services for Fort Bend County. Hopefully some of you have joined us throughout the month as we've talked about mental health issues. And as many of you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So for the last several weeks, we've had several events to really increase the information around mental health disorders, the importance of identifying mental health disorders in our community and connecting people to care. In Fort Bend County, we're very fortunate. We have a behavioral health services department and several other departments that address mental health needs in our community, including our justice system, health and human services. We have a public defender's office that has a mental health division, and our district attorney's office and probation departments also have mental health services. So working alongside our justice partners in our community, our goal is to help identify mental health disorders, help divert people from criminal justice when possible, connect them to services, and improve well-being. So the last presentation is today, and we have two of our staff, Faye James and Chrissy Lee, who are both licensed. One's a LPC, licensed professional counselor associate, and the other one is actually a licensed psychological associate, and both have a lot of experience working with people with mental illness and in the criminal justice system. So they will be talking about coping strategies and psychological distress. Clearly, we have all experienced a lot of that, especially in the last 2 days, trying to make sense of horrific tragedy in the loss of innocent lives, including young children. Clearly, this is something that we are seeing too often and something that needs to be addressed. And I hope that we are all strong to take action and to prevent this from happening in the future and to keep our children safe. Both Chrissy and Faye will talk a lot about coping strategies, and I think possibly address psychological safety and how important it is for us to feel safe in order to be well. And we know that, especially in children need to feel safe in order to learn and to develop. So I hope we can all work together to make our communities, our schools, and our homes safer for our children. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy and to Faye. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Almeida. As she stated, my name is Chrissy Lee. I am a licensed psychological associate, authorized to practice independently in the state of Texas. And as she stated, today we're going to be talking about just coping strategies for general psychological distress, and we'll kind of get into more specifics throughout the presentation. Okay, so what is psychological distress? So we can think of psychological distress as a state of emotional suffering that is associated with stressors and demands that are difficult to cope with in daily life. So we know that throughout our daily life, we're met with a number of stressors, right? Whether it's personal life, whether it is professional life. But when we think about distress, something that is significantly impacting our ability to function in day-to-day life, research has shown that pretty steadily throughout the years, the conditions that tend to affect people the most prevalently are depression and anxiety. Some studies quote as many as 1 in 4 people will be affected with some kind of serious mental illness. So whether that is depression, anxiety, trauma. So if we think about even how many people are in this room, right? A handful of us might have experienced some kind of psychological distress within the past 30 days, right? So as I stated, psychological distress is often associated with feelings of depression or anxiety or trauma, and even burnout from high demands at work, high demands in your personal life. And we find that often the people that are most impacted are those who have a poor support system, or feel that they don't have adequate control of their life circumstances. Research has also shown that psychological distress is often accompanied with somatic complaints. So when we think of what somatic complaints are, those things that we feel physically in our body, right? So headaches, tummy aches, pain, joint pain, fatigue, right? So those are things to keep in mind. So I mentioned that there are things that happen throughout our daily life that can cause us psychological distress, right? As Dr. Almeida mentioned in her introduction, there are several events that have happened just this month that have likely caused a lot of us pretty significant psychological distress. A lot of our parents with newborns or family members with newborns are experiencing distress related to the formula shortage. There was a racially motivated massacre of several individuals a couple of weeks ago in Buffalo, New York, which has caused a lot of psychological distress, not only for minority communities, but for the community as a whole. The Uvalde massacre, as Dr. Almeida stated, that just happened several days ago, where many children and several teachers lost their lives to a gunman. Fall back from the Ukraine war and just political, just being unsure about the political state of our nation, right? And there's still lingering COVID effects, right? Thankfully, we're kind of able to breathe a little bit better, right? Figuratively and literally, because of vaccinations, we're able to kind of, some of us, feel more comfortable to be without masks, but there are still lingering concerns. People are still, being diagnosed with COVID, long-term effects of those who have been diagnosed with COVID. And research is showing now that even lingering impacts of grief, so like those who lost loved ones during the pandemic, whether it was related to COVID or not, we will be dealing with the fallback of that for years to come, even after, things maybe are not declared a pandemic or a state of emergency anymore. And the inflation, right? Rising prices on groceries, on gas, even though we are not experiencing a significant increase in our pay, right? The prices are increasing, but we don't have the means to pay for the things that we need to, and that causes a significant amount of psychological distress as well. So now we'll turn it over to Ms. Faye James to dig a little deeper into some of the specific disorders that I mentioned previously.
Thank you, Christy. So one of the things that we see frequently, and all of us experience some degree of, is anxiety. So I know for kids going to school, that can cause anxiety. Tests specifically can cause anxiety, just a minor amount, but some people experience that a lot more intensely. So stress is a normal psychological and physical reaction just to the regular demands in life. We experience it in traffic, we experience it at work, we experience it at school, at home, any kind of thing, especially in time crunches, right? But anxiety is going to be an intense, excessive, persistent worrying about specific things. Some people, especially after COVID, it's going to be that social anxiety. I've been secluded, alone, told that we have to be careful with who we're around. And now here we are back in the world with all of these people. And it's like, oh no, I'm not used to this. I need my space. And we've gotten used to having that space, having that personal kind of bubble, and feeling like our bubble is now being invaded can cause that excessive anxiety and worry, which is a totally normal response. Again, with schools, A lot of our kids were in school doing it online, didn't have as much of that pressure because even with colleges, some of those requirements were waived. Some of the STAR testing was waived for some of those years. We had lots of changes throughout COVID and then have been thrown back in. And it has completely shifted the way that our high schoolers, middle schoolers, and elementary school kids see just the general school life after being pretty much at home or in some kind of hybrid situation for about a year and a half. And normally we all experience some of that. I know personally, I'm always a huge test anxiety person. It takes me a minute. I get through it, but it's a normal part for me. Some people experiencing that on an extremely high level. So some of those signs of anxiety in adults that we talk about, like that persistent feeling of apprehension or dread, that can include like staying up really late at night, having nightmares about a specific event that's happening because of that. Just that extreme worry, which can cause that irritability, feeling tense or jumpy, feeling nervous about specific events, going places, being in cars. It almost feels debilitating going to that location because of that apprehension or dread or doing that activity. Nervous or restlessness. A lot of us experience that when you notice and this person's kind of their legs moving, they're jumping, fidget toys, they're playing with their rings a lot, or their hair. Those are all signs that that person might be feeling anxious in that moment. Biting at our nails, biting at our lip. Some people will like pick at their skin or pull at their hair. Those are all signs of anxiety, like fidgety signs of anxiety. Trouble concentrating. When our brain is going 100 miles per hour, how can we think about what's going on in class or what our boss is telling us that needs to be done tomorrow? Our brain is not present in that moment. It's thinking about all of the other things that's going on, all of the fears, all of that worry that's in their head. And then difficulty controlling that worry, it takes over. Some of the common physical signs that we see are going to be your heart racing, shortness of breath or increased breathing rapidly, increased breathing, sweating, so feeling really hot and then starting to sweat, trembling, shaking, headaches, weakness or tired, trouble sleeping, or sometimes even those stomach issues or headaches that we talked about. A lot of the people get those stomach knots when they're feeling anxious, like butterflies, the bad version. And then it's exhausting mentally. If our brain is so focused on something else, it is taking all of our energy, it's taking all of our focus, and it makes it to where you want to sleep so much, but then you're so worried about what's going on, you can't sleep. So you're constantly feeling tired. Then we go into some of those signs of kids, which are seen a little bit differently. They'll sometimes experience those same things. They'll experience those same things, but it's seen differently because they can't express a lot of the time what necessarily they're feeling. They feel that anxiety and it comes on and we don't necessarily have the words to share at that moment. Even as an adult, it's hard to be like, I feel really anxious, especially if there's not a specific reason why. It's just that general anxiety about life itself. So for kids, it can happen at any time. I know we've seen some, like we all can walk past someone and this kid's throwing a tantrum and we're like they're having a bad day, or why aren't their parents doing something? It's quick to go to that thought, right? But a lot of the time that tantrums and irritability in those situations where it seems like nothing's going on is because that kid can't regulate. They can't express that anxiety. So that tantrums, that irritability, that anger towards the situation, their parents, a lot of the time it's because they can't express what's going on in their head. They feel so anxious, they feel so worried about something, but they don't know how to tell us. So then they start withdrawing. They're like, okay, well, if I'm not present in the situation, how am I going to get those tantrums and irritability? I can't get worried if I'm not really there. Excessive clinginess or fear of being alone, that's they lean onto the people that they care about or they trust or they feel safest with because they don't feel safe in their thoughts. Getting scared easily or scared of doing something, that startled response that we have. They feel anxious and they feel worried, so they're gonna respond more dramatically or to any kind of situation that they feel that worry in. Loss of interest in unusual events. So like I said, when our brain is going a million miles per hour, we can't focus on the things that we enjoy doing. So when we're stressed at work, we're all busy. I love going home and watching a mindless TV show. I can't focus on something that I need attention to because I've given all of my attention at work. I'm so focused. I want to be present in my relationships. Well, when that anxiety is going all of the time, these kids just stop focusing on any of those fun activities because their brain can't engage. That feeling of sadness and hopelessness, it's constant. When is it going to stop? And those same somatic complaints, headaches, tummy aches, all of those are common that we see. So when you have a child with anxiety, it's best to normalize those feelings and let them know that things are going to be okay. When we're anxious, the last thing we want to hear is, "You're overreacting, it's fine, just move on." No, this is how I feel. This is what's going on. So normalize it. Let them know that it's okay. Talk about the feelings that you have, the things that make you anxious. Let them know that they're not alone in those feelings either. Trying to do it as a developmentally appropriate conversation. So if we talk to a 3-year-old and they're like, "Well, I'm anxious too, and this and this and that," and you kind of go on this long rant, they've checked out. So just having developmentally appropriate conversations to where incorporating play for little kids and talking through play is a kid's language. Doing fun activities to distract and maintaining their routines. So with an individual with anxiety, knowing what's coming up next can help to minimize that anxiety. So if they have a consistent routine, then it makes it easier for them to understand what's coming next, what we're going to do. And if that routine changes, letting them know ahead of time, "Hey, I know you're in the middle of something. We have about 10 minutes and then we need to go and do this." "Okay, I have 10 minutes to wrap this up." And then I can kind of prepare. "Okay, in 10 minutes, okay, we have 8 more minutes, 7 more minutes." Continually giving them those updates. "Okay, I know that in this much time, I have to close this," instead of, "We're late, we gotta go, put your shoes on, stop drawing." "But my picture, like, I'm still working on this." So it kind of changes up that routine and then makes them feel super anxious, worried, and go into the fear mode. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Chrissy, and she's gonna go through some of those depression symptoms.
All right. So when we think about depression, depression is defined as a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. Depression causes feelings of sadness, loss of interest in activities you once enjoyed, and can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems, and can decrease your ability to function and work at home. So kind of similar to, so again, one of these legs or tenets of psychological distress, right? So we know we have things that happen in everyday life that cause us to feel sad. The events from 2 days ago, I'm sure, brought a lot of sad feelings for us, right? Loss of a loved one, significant change that maybe has, like adverse impacts or negative impacts, right? Like losing a job, any kind of loss, any kind of negative change, the constant exposure to just like racial injustice and traumatic events that kind of cumulatively build on one another and just kind of bog you down and make you feel yucky, right? So like I say, sadness is a part of life, right? But when we think about that debilitating sadness, the sadness to where maybe I just feel like I don't have any energy, I don't have any motivation to do anything. I'm just really, really sad and bogged down, and I don't really know why, right? So much to the point to where I don't have the energy to get out of bed. I don't have the energy to shower. I don't have the energy to brush my teeth or comb my hair. I don't have the energy to play with my kids. These are some of the debilitating signs of depression, right? Maybe you like to jog, or maybe you like to go to church, or maybe you like to read and you're just like, I don't even really have the drive or desire to even do those things that I enjoy, right? So some additional signs of depression, like I say, just feeling really sad and maybe having no idea why you feel sad. You feel sad more days than you don't feel sad, right? So let's think if there's 7 days in the week, 5 days out of the week, you cannot get it together. It's just like a constant struggle to kind of keep moving. Changes in your appetite, right? So you're really, really hungry, right? I myself personally, food is a comfort thing for me. So sometimes when I'm feeling sad, I will pig out on things that I like gringos or ice cream or whatever it is. So if you find that you are just insatiable, right? Food gives you kind of like, and it's scientific, like as far as like endorphins and serotonin and all that you eat, and it gives you this good feeling, right? So it's even just like a small break, a small amount of relief from that just like intense bogged down feeling that you have. Or not having an appetite, right? Not having the energy to eat. Difficulty sleeping too much, right? You sleep throughout the day, no matter how much you sleep, you can't seem to recharge your battery or get enough energy, right? Or the complete opposite of that, you can't sleep, right? Insomnia, to where it's just like you are so tired, your brain is exhausted, but your body will not shut off, right? Um, um, Feeling worthless or feeling helpless. Some of the events that I mentioned in the beginning of the slide, I myself personally, and we kind of talked about this, feelings of helplessness, like what can I do? Me, myself as one person, right? What can I do maybe to rectify or improve the traumatic things that we see, on a daily basis? And difficulty thinking and concentrating and staying focused, right? So maybe you found the energy to go to work, but you can't seem to stay focused. You've been trying to write a report and you stuck on that one sentence, right? Or you've been trying to file something and you keep filing things the wrong way, or we can kind of tell when things are off with our body. So it's important to kind of pay attention. So we know like what it feels good as far as like a baseline, what normal feels like for us. So we can kind of detect when things are not normal and when it's time to pay attention. One of the more serious signs of depression, thoughts of death or suicide, right? So just feeling so overwhelmed that death would be a welcomed escape from just like the constant sadness, the constant helplessness, the constant just like feeling that nothing will ever get better. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So when we're in it, right, it might seem like things are never going to get better. If you take that escape, then you never can find out for yourself if things will in fact get better, right? If you are someone is struggling with thoughts of suicide, struggling with feeling helpless or hopeless, there's the suicide prevention lifeline that you can call here. You can also text that 8255 on your phone, and a counselor will respond immediately, and they will kind of do crisis intervention for you and try to get you connected to some resources. Okay, so that's a good number to have to just keep in your phone and to share with the people that are close to you. How are we doing on time, Shan? How are we doing on time? Okay, thank you. All right, another leg of psychological distress that I want to talk about is burnout. So I know my people in here know what burnout is, right? Because I share an office with y'all, most of you guys, and we are in the trenches day in and day out. Before my people that are online that may not know what burnout is, it is a physical, emotional, or mental that is accompanied by decreased motivation, lowered performance, and negative attitudes towards oneself or others, right? What can burnout look like? It might look like fatigue, right? Just feeling really tired, feeling tired when you have to think about getting up and going to work, right? Feeling apathetic or dissatisfied with work. So maybe you really loved your job. Maybe you were really, really enthusiastic about what it is that you get to do on a daily basis, and you find that motivation is just like slowly dwindling away. Maybe you were really excited to get up and go to work, and now you are dreading getting out of the bed and going to work, right? Maybe you were once passionate about your clients, and now that you feel less empathetic towards them, right? It's kind of more difficult to connect with them or to empathize with their stories or their situations, right? Headaches, so more of those somatic complaints. So headaches, joint pain, back pain, and significant changes to your eating or sleep patterns, right? So if you notice, some of these symptoms mimic depression quite a bit, right? And oftentimes depression and burnout can get kind of mixed or kind of like mixed together, right? So you may say, well, Chrissy, how do you tell burnout from depression? I'm glad you asked me. That's a great question. Burnout typically is more focused when you think about work or whatever it is that is stressing you out or kind of burning you out, right? So once you leave the office and go home to play with your kids or go to church or get ready for vacation, you know, those yucky feelings that you were feeling, they are gone, right? But right when you think about having to go to work or complete an assignment, those yucky feelings come back again, right? All right, so then you might say, well, Christy, now I know what burnout is, but how do I combat that, right? What are you telling me to do to cope with that? It's important to establish and enforce work-life boundaries. Now, in a couple of slides, we'll kind of go into detail about what that looks like. But just real quickly, like leaving work at work. And I know sometimes that's hard because we have deadlines to meet. Sometimes some of us are on call, right? So clients have to be able to get in touch with us outside of the 9 to 5 window. It is really important though to set boundaries for yourself and enforce those because you need time away from what it is that is taking up your constant energy and effort to recharge yourself. And I always tell myself, Chrissy, if you're not good to yourself, then how can you be good to anybody else? If you don't have anything in your cup, how you can't pour from an empty cup, right? I can't be good to my clients or my coworkers or whatever the case if I am not taking care of myself. And I just thought I'd throw this in there because these are just some more visual representations of what burnout kind of looks like. So we talked about exhaustion and dreading work, trouble sleeping. It mimics depression a lot, that feeling like you are drowning in your work. Like no matter how much you catch up on, you cannot seem to dig yourself out of the hole, right? Short temper with your coworkers, with your boss, or even your family members, right? And then no time for non-work related things. I'll just give you a really brief, like personal, I guess, experience. So many of you here in the room know, but my personality is just to be doing a lot, multitasking, doing multiple things at once, right? So some of you know I'm like in this doctorate program. I'm also working full time. I also have a practicum that I go to on top of like trying to maintain a social life and a personal life, right? And generally, I can juggle all the things and it's fine, right? But I noticed kind of within the past 6 months or so, things were becoming increasingly demanding at work and at school, right? And sometimes when you are doing the same thing every day, especially at work, that monotony starts to kind of like bog down on you. And I noticed that I wasn't as enthusiastic to come to work, right? That I didn't really enjoy talking to my clients as much anymore. That I dreaded having to sit at a computer and type out yet another report. Things, as I say, things were becoming increasingly demanding, and it was like that feeling of drowning. And I joked a lot in the office about like putting floaties on, but like literally, I felt like the workload was above my head, and there was no way that I was going to be able to dig out of it. So I had to have a conversation with myself and say, okay, something's got to give, right? Because you have to, like I said, take care of myself so I can take care of others. So that meant enforcing some of those work-life boundaries that I had said, right? Not doing so much, kind of leaving work at work, taking, mental health days, making sure that I'm pouring into myself and doing those things that recharge me, right? So, yeah, okay. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Faye. She's gonna go over grief really quickly.
So with the events that we've all been seeing on the news, the Buffalo Massacre, the Uvalde Massacre as well, we are all, not just the people close, but all of us are experiencing some degree of grief because it is close to home. These are kids, they are teachers, they are innocent moms, grandparents, sons, daughters, all of these people that have been affected by this, communities have been affected. And there's no guide to how you grieve. We all grieve differently. We all need different ways to cope with it. And that does include taking that time for yourself, because we are all going to experience some of those signs of depression. It might not be you are feeling like you are depressed and you are in a depressive state, but you can be experiencing those signs. You can feel less enthused to be at work. You can feel that doing day-to-day tasks is too much. And that's because we're all trying to process and grieve a specific event or a personal event that's happened. And one of our coworkers sent this to us, and it says, cry when you need to, scream, shout, lay on the floor, sob in the shower, be still, run, walk, create, live your truth, share without fear, listen, release your pain, breathe, be courageous, throw away the map, wander, be real, be compassionate, read, seek friendship, be vulnerable, and don't fear being broken. We all have to figure out how to go about this new chapter with dealing with the grief. And I know I am very much the guilty person of crying, and I definitely release my pain of things by like pushing myself into the gym and like escaping. But I also need that support. And this is the time that we lean in on our community, lean in on people that we care about, check up on people. I reached out to a lot of my friends with kids yesterday because I don't have kids, but I can't imagine what they were feeling. Seeing that happen, I can't imagine how that would feel to be a parent and feel that. And so just reaching out to the people that we care about and making sure that we have that support. Back to Chrissy.
Okay, so we have this nice colorful self-care wheel here. And it just talks about some of the ways that you can implement self-care into factors that impact your everyday life, right? So I talked a little bit about taking the time off of work to do the things that I know recharge me. So social relationships, attachments with the people that are important to you, right? Spending time with my family recharges me. So if that is what recharges you, if that is what fills your bucket and kind of makes you feel better about the things that are going on and feel better about yourself, those are some of the ways that you can take the time to self-care. A lot of times, and I think sometimes when we think of self-care, we think of like spa days, we think of like shopping sprees, or whatever the case. And those things are very much self-care, but it's also important to do the daily things that that help you to take care of yourself, right? Emotional and mental health. So checking in on yourself, right? Sometimes we are, like I say, in the thick of things, it's kind of hard for us to notice things about ourselves. So it's, again, important to keep those social, interpersonal connections so people close to you can kind of tell you, hey, I noticed this looks different, this seems different, checking in with our people and seeing, if they are okay. Spiritual practices, whatever that looks like for you. So whether it's church, whether it's praying, whether it is meditating, whether it is reading, making sure to incorporate those things on a regular basis. Doing meaningful work, right? So making sure that at some point you are doing something that you feel makes a difference, that you feel is important. And maybe that's not with your 9-to-5 job, but that can be volunteer work after your 9-to-5, or something that you feel like is inspirational and meaningful to you. And then, like Faye said, physical health. So making sure we're eating right, making sure we're staying hydrated, making sure we are getting our physical activity in, whether that looks like the gym or taking the stairs or going on walks for lunch. And it's little by little, right? It doesn't have to be this big, drastic life change immediately. Take little bitty steps day by day. And then by the end of the month, you will be surprised to see the impact and the difference that it's made.
All right. So when we talk about different ways to kind of reorganize, get out of burnout, take care of ourselves. Sometimes that just means kind of starting fresh. So personal life, we can clean, organize, write things down. Journaling's a good way to kind of reflect on things, especially like we go through lows, highs, and middle grounds of our emotions every single week, every single day. Sometimes having a journal, and I tell my clients every day, no matter what, even if your day feels like the worst day possible, try to end your day thinking about a couple positive things. That can be, for some people, I got to see my smiling child's face. Sometimes they annoy me, but I saw my smiling child's face, and that's a joy for me. I got to get my favorite coffee at lunch or in the morning. That's a joy for the day. Just trying to be mindful about the positives that you experience each day to help kind of start changing that mindset. Spending time with your pets. I love my pets. She loves me. She gives me cuddles. It makes me happy. She will unconditionally love me, and I love that. Take 15 minutes each day to just have uninterrupted time. We are so busy on our phones and looking at stuff. I ask people all the time, do you sit down and eat dinner? Do you bring your phone to the table? Yeah. Let's stop that. Let's put our phones away. Let's have that time to where we can just spend it with our family and just have a no phone rule for a little bit, to where we can ask specifically about each person's day. What do you know about your kids? What do you know about your parents? How many kids know their parents' favorite movie, or their favorite color, or their favorite thing to eat, or their favorite dessert? Start asking random questions. Get to know each other a little bit deeper, because those things change frequently too. Playing games, learning about your family history, planning a getaway or a vacation. I love vacations. Look forward to planning them, but then I dread having to wait for them. Work or professional. We are fortunate that we are able to have some time in our office to where we can just lean on our coworkers. Spend some time, okay, this happened, let's talk about it. Let's have a minute. I had this rough case and I'm gonna go talk to someone about it. Or, just my head's not with it for right now. I just need a minute. I'm gonna go outside and just walk up and down the sidewalk for a minute. Take some time, set priorities each day, to-do lists. I'll talk a little bit about that part later. Find new strategies, lean on people for help, right? So financial can be a stressor for all of us, especially with increases in rates. Create a budget, okay? This is what I can spend each month right now with everything increasing. So how am I gonna work that into my budget, okay? I'm gonna pull out cash instead of spending on my cards so I don't overspend. Taking seminars, keeping good records each month, just kind of taking that stress out of it. It might be stressful at first to start looking at it that way, but then you can kind of get into a better routine. So then we talk about making sure, we touched on this, but getting enough hydration. I have a half-gallon water jug, and everyone looks at me and is like, that is way too much water. How do you drink that every day? If you drink 4 bottles of water, the 16-ounce bottles, you have had half a gallon of water. Just think about it like that. All I have to do is have 4 16-ounce bottles of water, and I get half a gallon. 8 ounces in the morning, 8 ounces after breakfast, just 8 ounces before lunch, something. Just keep hydrated. Making sure you get enough sleep. We are all guilty of that. I know I wake up, my alarm goes off at 3:45, and I probably go to bed at 10. So I do not get enough sleep, but I try. On the weekends, I sleep in. Participate in physical activity, eating healthy, prepping your meals, planning them out ahead of time takes away some of the stress of, oh, I'm running late, I'm getting home late, and I don't know what's for dinner. I bought some stuff and I don't know what I'm going to figure out. Picking out each day, okay? This day I'm going to do this day I'm going to do that. This day you're cooking, this day I'm cooking. Whatever that can look like. Limiting screen time. Like I said, put down your phone, have a conversation, relax and recharge. Read a book. When I get home, I lay in my bed for 20 minutes in complete silence by myself, and I'm like, okay, this is my time. I just like laying in my bed. Avoid excessive caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. So I know we're all guilty of caffeine. Take care of your mind. Keep a regular routine. Limit exposures to news and media. Find pleasant distractions. Focus on positive thoughts. Faith and spirituality, like we brought up. Mindfulness, journaling, and connecting with others. So some techniques that we can use, this one's especially good with little kids that you can do. When we feel anxious or overwhelmed, everyone says take deep breath. Well, your heart's already pounding, you're overwhelmed, you kind of just feel super tense up top, right? So when we talk about belly breathing, instead of breathing in through our chest and expanding our chest when our heart's already going crazy, putting your hand on your heart and on your belly, and when you take that deep breath in, push out through your belly instead of through your chest. So your chest should stay pretty flat. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for a little bit, and release. When you do that with kids, you can have them lay on the floor and put a stuffed animal on their belly and tell them, watch the stuffed animal rise and fall. Or you can have them blow bubbles if they're able to. Okay, breathe in, take a big deep breath in. Okay, breathe out and tell them with the belly, kind of focus on the belly. Balloons are a good one too. Blow the balloon, take a deep breath in, now blow the balloon, and kind of count it out with them. So when you take a deep breath through your stomach, you're grounding yourself back down. So you're slowing your breathing and you're feeling it throughout your body instead of just through your chest. So then we go into time blocking. So this is that schedule type thing. So when we do a time block, it minimizes the kind of unexpected throughout our routine, right? So creating routines and prioritizing that time. So putting time for self-care in there, putting time for conversations with family members, dinner, for kids' homework. Okay, homework's going to be at this time. Uninterrupted, focus on this. Now, when you're doing this, you can utilize a to-do list with it. So, okay, I have this deadline, this is due tomorrow, and I'm going to put this up top, and this is going to be in red. And when I have to do my homework, this is the first thing I have to get done in this. Okay, now I have this thing, I finished that major priority first. I still have extra time in this homework block. Now I'm going to do my next assignment. It is important. Okay, green's due in 5 days. I only have 5 minutes left. Okay, I'm just going to have my 5 minutes. Same with other things that happen, right? The dishes, mopping floor, all of those fun chores that we have to do at home. Prioritize. Okay, I mopped the floor 3 days ago. I don't mop my floor. I mop it every Sunday. Can't do 3 days. That's a lot. But like those things, prioritize those. Okay, I have 2 hours a day that I can clean, or 30 minutes a day I can clean. Well, this day I'm going to do all of my toilets. I'm going to do all of the sinks. I'm going to do the bathtub. I'm going to do vacuuming. I'm going to wash my sheets this day, and I'm going to do clothes this day. And just prioritize each thing throughout the week to where it takes some of the stress out and you have that time. I know there's going to be days that things come up and it's going to be a little crazy, but you have that list and you kind of maneuver some stuff, and it feels less overwhelming than, oh my gosh, it's Sunday. I have to go grocery shopping. I have to meal prep. I have to do this. I have to clean the house. I have to do this. And especially if you have kids, okay, here's your to-do list, and here's your time that you're doing these chores. This is your priority chore. This is the next day chore. This is the next day chore. This is when it needs to, like, this is your time for it. So it can help allow you guys to, and then you have the same self-care time. Okay, this is your self-care that you want to do, kid. All right, I'm gonna go do mine. Mine's over here. Yours is over there. We have our time, right? So just doing that allows you, and with work too. Okay, this assignment's due first, this thing's due next. This is how my day is gonna look.
All right, so we have talked about a lot today, right? We've talked about general psychological distress. We kind of dug a little deeper into some of the more common illnesses or syndromes that we experience, like depression, anxiety, trauma, burnout, right? And we have talked about those things that we can kind of incorporate into our daily lives to kind of help alleviate some of the psychological distress that we experience. But what happens when those things are not enough, right? What happens when I'm exercising and I'm eating right and I'm journaling and I still cannot seem to dig myself out of the hole or the funk that I'm feeling? Then you might want to think about seeking professional treatment, right? If symptoms are interfering with your ability to do your work or to get up and go to work, adversely or negatively impacting your relationship, so you're more short with family members or your kids, you don't want to spend time with the people that are important to you or that you care about, more fights, more arguments with people that you care about or people that you are in close proximity to on a regular, snapping at coworkers, right? If you find that the distress is difficult to control, so like those things that we've talked about, it doesn't help, it doesn't make things feel any better, or you feel that you are playing or leaning too much into alcohol, right? To where it's starting to affect your safety or your relationships. Or drug use, right? Illicit drug use. Maybe, you find yourself doing more risky things and not really swimming, like we mentioned before, that you have thoughts of harming yourself, or you just feel like it would just be so much better if I went to sleep and didn't wake up in the morning. Or maybe you don't have a plan to take your life, but you, again, are doing these risky things like drugs, speeding, driving drunk, driving high, and not really caring about the consequences. That can be a less common or less noticeable sign of suicide or self-harm as well. It's time to seek professional treatment. So we hear about CBT all the time. Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the more common methods used by clinicians in treatment. One of my personal favorites is also like psychodynamic therapy. So cognitive behavioral thinks about it kind of focuses on how you think and then how that is affecting your behavior, right? And your feelings, right? And so how can we change our thinking to change our thoughts and our behaviors, right? Think of it as like a kind of immediate like solution. Not saying that it works quickly. I don't want to give that misconception because it doesn't. But more of like an immediate or more short term, I say, approach to whatever distress that you are feeling, right? When we think of psychodynamic therapy, it takes a kind of deeper plunge into those things, right? So a lot of times you will look at attachment styles, and then sometimes dig far back, like into your childhood, to maybe see what things kind of shaped you and your perception that have kind of contributed to the patterns and behaviors that you are displaying now. So you may say, well, Chrissy, that's all great information, but where do I seek out treatment like that? That is another great, y'all are asking great questions. I really appreciate that. So one of the things that you can do is you can refer to your insurance provider, right? They will do all the work for you and all the research for you. They will find you a provider that is covered in your plan. And a lot of plans, I believe here in Fort Bend County as well, they not only cover the psychotherapy, right, but also psychiatry is also covered in your plan as well. Maybe you know a loved one or know a friend maybe that is not insured, right? So we have several facilities here in Fort Bend County that provide treatment to those who are uninsured or maybe are experiencing financial difficulty. Texana is one, Access Health is another. And although I don't believe Harris Health Services Fort Bend County, it's another one for, the greater Houston area. Another, is it my paper? No, am I hearing things? I'm not hallucinating, y'all, I promise. Another one is going through your employment assistance program, your EAP, right? I know Fort Bend County offers their employees like 8 free sessions if you call and you fill out the referral. So maybe you are not sure that you want to pay for treatment or you feel like it's too expensive. Try out your EAP program for a couple of sessions and kind of see if you feel like it's helpful. These are some resources. These are included in the PowerPoint that is going to be uploaded to our website. So feel free to go and check those out. Some mindfulness resources, and we talk about like what is mindfulness, just kind of being, like we talked about, being aware of what is happening with your body and what is happening in your immediate surroundings and the more wider surroundings. Some of the presenters, this month have talked about how illness not only affects us, but the people that we care about, the people that are close to us, right? So being mindful not only of yourself, but how what is happening to you is impacting those that are around you. Meditation, right? We talked about some of the meditation and how that can be helpful. Aftermath of mass casualties. Parents are having to have difficult conversations with their kids, right, about the safety of going to school. And families have been having uncomfortable conversations about going out and being targeted because of the color of your skin or what you look like or what your nationality is. Those conversations are difficult to have, but just because they are difficult doesn't mean that we should shy away from them and not have them. So if you are looking for kind of like a template or assistance on, how to have those conversations, these are some good links, specifically about aftermath of mass casualties. And I believe there's a link in there about just kind of speaking to children about trauma in general. One of our coworkers shared with us this morning, we didn't get a chance to put it in the presentation, but apparently Sesame Street has also uploaded some tips on their website on how to talk to children about mental illness, trauma, kind of, things that are impacting them. I know, well, I won't say I know because I don't have kids, but I think the natural inclination is to shield our kids and protect them. And maybe we don't want to have to talk to them about the reality of the way things are, but they are experiencing it. And like we talked about, it is important to acknowledge those feelings and affirm those feelings in them and those experiences. And we want to create a psychologically safe space for them to come and talk about their feelings, because if they don't have that safe space, then they might turn to those more maladaptive things, and that can create problems further on down the road. And not only for our kids and in our home, but our employees, our supervisors, our bosses need to be thinking about ways to create psychologically safe spaces for your employees to feel comfortable telling you when they feel burnt out, telling you when they feel overworked and undervalued, right? And so if we are kind of mimicking or kind of saying, okay, well, this is a psychologically safe space, but then maybe you get blowback or repercussions for things that you've shared and divulged, and that's not really a safe space, right? So I think we as employees, as co-workers, as supervisors, as bosses need to, be kind of thinking about that and how we want to implement that in our workspaces. And these are the local resources. So I mentioned Texana, I mentioned Access Health. Fort Bend County, we generally provide services to that have been court ordered. But if you are looking for assistance on trying to get connected somewhere, feel free to call our office and we can provide you with the resources, or try to help you get connected with those resources. The National Suicide Prevention Line, Texana also has a 24-hour crisis line. National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, they also have a line. So great resources there. Check those out.
Any questions?
Yeah, do we have any questions? Okay, do we have any questions here in the room? No? Okay, thank you guys for your attention. And I know Dr. Ameda walked out, but I want to thank you guys for those who have been present here in the room. It is encouraging to see familiar faces and to have somebody to talk to. So thanks for coming to support. And thank you guys for you guys who have attended online throughout the month. We really appreciate it. This, I believe, concludes our May's Mental Health series. And I believe all of the presentations from the month and the one from today will be uploaded to the website. So thank you guys again, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Go, Christin!
No.